Hi, love. Today I wanted to talk about survival because sometimes we have been living in survival for such a long time that we forget to live without it. And even if we did the work, we've gained a lot of self awareness. We come to a point where we realize that the tension of living in survival modus for a significant time, if not your whole lifetime, still lives within the nervous system. And how we respond to that moment decides everything. Do we stay trapped in our old life, or do we break open into our next life? A life where we experience another dimension, where we can embrace softness, ease, and flow again, where we stop confusing force and tension for strength, and softness and ease for weakness. And although everything we have been through has shaped us into who we are now and even made us stronger, it can also keep us stuck in the same cycles. I believe there is a way to honor the past without being consumed by it. And to be clear, survival isn't always evident or very loud within your life. Sometimes it hides behind high functioning, being overly controlled, overly sharp, even respected. That is what makes it even more dangerous, because it disguises itself as power. What often gets overlooked is that there's a big difference between radical responsibility and inherited survival that took form as hyperproductivity as safety, tolerating situations that drain you from your life force, because somewhere along the line you have accepted that everything that is worth having needs to be suffered for, needs to be fought for. Endless analyzing of the self, because you don't know how to feel safe in just being. Always being 10 steps ahead emotionally, because that is the way you have learned to protect yourself from the risk of being hurt. Building and doing everything alone, because you don't trust anyone to hold it with you. Over preparing, overthinking, perfectionism to prevent failure, because we have attached failure to rejection or danger of some sort. Survival creates a false identity. It's not a real you, but a part of you that lives in a condensed state of consciousness. It restricts you from living in full alignment with the soul, from joy, from flow. And that path will always lead to exhaustion, because it was built on conditions. And where those patterns come from often goes way deeper than we can see or experience on the surface. What often gets overlooked are the deeper energetic imprints, survival inherited from our ancestors. Perhaps women in your line that were emotionally weaponized, sexualized, abandoned, even murdered, who had to master self-erasure just to stay safe. All those energies can still be very active within your system. They attach themselves to all levels of your existence, the mind, the body, and the soul. These levels need to be approached separately because they live within other dimensions. And if you had to fight your whole life and you carry that energy on top of that, your body doesn't always recognize when the war is over. I'm sick of the whole narrative where they try to shove the whole complexity of what it means to be a human on the one rock in the name of you making your own decisions. It's not always as simple as just choosing differently. There's a lot of truth in it, but truth has many layers. You are so powerful, extremely powerful. And yes, your life gets shaped by the decisions that you make. Your choices matter deeply. But we cannot go past the fact that you are walking through layers that have been handed to you long before you ever knew peace, long before you even knew what it meant to be alive. Experiences can be deeply traumatizing, and then life just keeps happening. And instead of being held, being protected, you had to become your own savior. That shapes a nervous system in ways that most people will never understand. Experiencing moments where you feel completely crushed by the weight of it all doesn't say anything about your strength. You had to survive in ways you only knew how, and the body keeps score. It has your best interest at hand. So it will call you back home, when it's time to release. And all we have to do is listen. Because despite what happens, we have the power to decide how long we keep carrying it. And you don't have to do it all at once. It just needs your grace. For me, it started with realizing that my life always felt like I had to suffer for it, fight for it, force things into happening. Fighting, constant fighting. I was so tired. And my mother always said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I always felt deep pain because of her pain. But at the same time, I felt this resentment towards this feeling of hopelessness. I always felt there must be another way. And yet, here I was, feeling the exact same thing for most of my life. Having to ask myself, why do I always have to fight for everything? What am I even fighting? What would not fighting even look like? That was the very thing I needed to explore. What would life look like if I didn't need to fight? All I've ever known was this cycle of pain, despair, followed by a little sparkle, just enough to give me some hope, to then see that same hope burn to the ground again. I always did everything I could. I fought my way up and then still felt empty. And it really did something to my soul. It made me doubt my own momentum, my decisions, life. That's not something to take lightly, because it becomes a soul-deep pattern. And the whole system is going to feel like, what is the point of all this? What is the point of trying to live different if it's not going to lead anywhere? What is the point of trying when it's going to be taken away anyways? When you feel that, it has nothing to do with being negative, ungrateful, or incapable. It's just because you are exhausted, not only physically, but existentially tired. The way you respond to everything you have lived through, to everything that you are carrying, is perfectly sane. And for me, after doing loads of healing, It wasn't about not being able to feel happiness or joy, or even feeling like I will only be happy when I have money, because I had all of that. It was about feeling safe within the self. I wanted to experience inner stability, coherence, not constantly having to fight or force for my next breath. For me, it had absolutely nothing to do with a mindset block, but with something very deep and sacred that needed to be reclaimed from within. Hitting the absolute bottom was a window opened by my soul to offer me an opportunity to go into another direction, to release everything that was built from survival, force, pressure, overgiving, and needing it to work or else. Because that was never sustainable. And when I opened myself up to another possibility, knowing that I didn't have to start over, because that was a fear that I often had, but now realizing that I had the opportunity to build from essence, from the truth of who I am, real, rooted, sovereign truth. Everything started to shift as soon as I gave myself permission to rest within my own life, to release urgency, knowing that urgency will always burn itself out. It's fueled by a lack of faith. I thought it helped me with building faster, but all it did was repelling the things that I actually wanted. It's like becoming the opposite side of a magnet, pushing everything away. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't need to hold everything anymore. Time is money, time is money. Boy, shut up. Your soul doesn't care about linear timelines. When it comes to this, time can wait. I needed to stop negotiating my worth with time. I needed to confront the part of me that believed that suffering is the price of being worthy. Because as long as that belief had mental real estate, every win or breakthrough would feel temporary. It wasn't a matter of just thinking differently, needing more strength, more force, more discipline. What I needed was containment, a life structure that doesn't feel like it's falling apart when I need to soften or rest. Capacity instead of more output. That was the reason that I was falling back into old ways of doing things. Because if you let yourself come to a point where you are overly exposed to pressure and tired, those habits are familiar survival scaffolding. I had to ask myself, what if life would stop demanding strength from me for 6 months? What would actually scare me about that? And what would happen if every time I feel that I have to fight, I would make the conscious decision to approach it differently, to soften. And when I was finally ready to stop suffering, I had to learn the hard way that life doesn't always immediately reward you with ease. Sometimes it observes if you are willing to hold the vision of your new life, even if there's no proof that it's working. Because the aftermath isn't about healing anymore. It is about the embodiment of your choice to do it differently, without evidence. I didn't need another technique, spiritual explanations or word salads to make sense of it all. And I definitely didn't need to gaslight myself into gratitude. What I needed was facing reality, seeing it as something that I had to move through to reach the other side of it, accepting that it was very real, very heavy, and not solvable by screaming gurus, slogans and quotes. I realized that real freedom isn't found in escaping survival. It's found in choosing to no longer identify with it. to hold myself so gracefully that I no longer needed the world to do it for me. I had to figure out how I could support myself in the best way possible without interfering or thinking that I know better. Real intelligence is our ability to accept and respect the intelligence of life. The goal must not be to always be in the positive, because you will set yourself up for the impossible. It is to harmonize with neutrality. Your ability to get back to center after a wave. Just stay, so it can melt away in its own time. That's the only way to feel safe again. To get out of survival mode and hypervigilance. For me, it was one of the greatest opportunities to get a healthy relationship with myself. To show myself that I was capable enough to hold myself through the ebbs and flows of life. That is what builds inner trust and safety from within. And once you have it, it can never be taken away because you have earned it. By staying present with the self when you needed it the most. Real healing is raw, disorienting, and completely invalidated by the outside world. That is why we have to hold ourselves with the utmost respect, love, and grace, knowing that we are shedding a version of ourselves that you have known to keep you safe for a very long time, even if it was standing in the way of your growth. So if all you do today is allow yourself to breathe and to feel what is real without rushing past it. Then you are already on your way back home. That's it for now. Gaat hierbij laten. Honor your inner space and carry yourself with grace. Ciao. See you next time. Inspired by the ones that were left behind us, we fell for the light of a foreign sky, blind to the forces above this life.